With CA announcing a rework to Shadows of Change and a delay to Thrones of Decay, it's really starting to make me think, how far are they actually willing to go to make good, proper DLC? We know we are expecting Shadows of Change to get the rework potentially next month in February, and a potential release for Thrones of Decay in April of this year. I'm kind of over the hype with Shadows of Change. I think it's a lost cause. The damage has already been done. It's good that they're trying to rework it, but there's not really much that I think they can do without completely redesigning all of the campaign mechanics and everything surrounding all three of the legendary lords to really hype my excitement. But Thrones of Decay, on the other hand, I have huge expectations for what's to come. Hello guys, MonkeyBot here, and today we're going to be talking about the Thrones of Decay DLC, and specifically the Nurgle aspect in this video. We'll probably touch on the other two races, which will be the Empire and Dwarves, in another video, but I really want to talk about Nurgle because I am so hyped for this DLC and I don't even know what's happening yet. Probably me having extremely high expectations and really high hopes, and it'll probably fall flat, but I don't care. I'm hyped for it. I want this, and I'm just going to share my thoughts with you guys on what I would love to see in this DLC. So I'm just going to jump straight into that. We pretty much know at this point it's going to be Tamurkhan. For those of you that don't know, I'm just going to give a little brief lore behind Tamurkhan. So Tamurkhan was born from one of the Kurgan warlords. He is in the Thrones of Chaos book. There was meant to be 4 of these, one for each of the Chaos gods, but in the end, CA decided to only do the Nurgle book, which is very unfortunate. Hopefully they go back and revisit and do them for the other 3 Chaos gods. But Tamurkhan is a very interesting character. So he's obviously, like I said, the son of a Kurgan warlord, and then he mutates to the point where he becomes a maggot, almost the size of a small child. And he enters the bodies of the characters that he kills and then controls the living corpses as like a puppet. And so he's kind of like a parasite, and he'll hop from body to body, and he'll end up in an ogre body where he will eventually die in the Battle of Null in the Empire. So that's a little brief history on Tamurkhan, but let's get into the game and let's see what we will be dealing with. So I have several ways that this campaign could start. There's the way that I think it's going to be, and then there's a couple of options of what I would actually prefer it to be. So I'm going to start with the one that I think is actually going to happen, and I'm going to talk about why this I don't think it's a great idea for him to start here, although it's a very good thematic place for him to start. It's actually the start of his story in the Thrones of Chaos book, but that location will actually be Zanbanjin over here. So this is where he starts his story. He starts his rampage. He builds up his hordes of chaos. He recruits things. He jumps into different bodies. He eventually fights his way down here. He goes through the Mountains of Morn, defeats an ogre tyrant, then takes the body of that ogre. He will then go all the way down the Mountains of Morn. He will then cross over the Darklands here, moving his way over to the Southern Empires here, or the Southern Realms, sorry, and then he'll eventually, I can't remember which pass it is, it's either this pass or this pass here. He will pass his way up here, and then he eventually sieges Null, and he besieges it, and then he'll eventually lose and die because of his arrogance and not wanting to lose his ogre body. So that is the brief storyline of him. Throughout this journey, he will be gathering the hordes of chaos, mainly Nurgle, but from all sides of chaos, whether it will be undivided. But it will be mainly Nurgle armies which will join him. So the reason why I don't think this will be a great start location for him is the fact he's not actually got very good early game enemies. He's got 2 choices. He could either go up here and attack Archeon, which you never really want to be attacking the Everchosen, or you have to go down here and fight Koelek. So straight away, you are dealing with 2 Warriors of Chaos Legendary Lords as your first initial army, or first initial enemy, sorry, because you'll probably start here. You'll take this first province here, and then you're literally stuck between the vassals of these 2 Chaos Lords. The only thing that would make this easier is if you move Korelek maybe slightly further into the mountain somewhere, but still you're gonna run into Korelek, and I just don't think that's going to be a great start for him. I think it's going to make things very awkward, and you're just gonna have to kill one of them, to be honest. And you're always going to end up killing Korelek because you really do not want to fight Archaon. You would like to ally with Archaon and be part of the end times. So you have to defeat a Warriors of Chaos, someone who could be your ally. You're going to end up having to kill him. So other than that, I don't really think it's a bad location for him to start. I think if he was going to start in the Chaos Waste, I think somewhere over here would be much better. But he doesn't really go here in lore, so it doesn't really make sense. It would be nice to have a Nurgle Legendary Lord starting in the Chaos Waste. I just don't think this is the location because you're just a bit stuck between attacking your ally or attacking your ally, which you don't really want to do. The second start location that I have in mind would actually be halfway through his journey in the Mountains of Morn. I believe the Titan's Notch would actually be a great place for him to start. This puts him up against an ogre enemy to start off with, making it very thematic that he's fighting the ogres and to gain the ogre tyrant body that he eventually possesses. So he can start here. He will eventually take on this first province here and then push down here. The only reason I don't think this will be a great place for him is because all of the Mountain of Morn territory, even when it's controlled by a non-Ogre Kingdom faction, these will all be minor settlements. So it's not going to be great for Nurgle, considering you have the cycle mechanic and you need those capital cities to be able to get your higher tier units, so your Exalted Plague Bearers, your Great Unclean Ones, your Chosen of Nurgle. You will need those larger settlements to be able to get more of those units, so it's actually very important for Nurgle to start with a capital city. But having said that, I do still think it's a very good location. I just want to point out the issues of that at the same time. You have a very nice enemy up here with Grimgor, a very challenging enemy that you'll have to go up against early game. You've got some nice allies over here with the Chaos Dwarves. I think in the lore as well, Tamurkhan becomes very friendly with the Chaos Dwarves and actually recruits a lot of them to his Chaos army. And then if you fight down far enough, you can even meet up with Kugath here and get a really nice confederation with him, giving you a second legendary lord to fight with you on your campaign. So it's a decent location. It's very thematic. I think it solves the problem of having to fight your allies straight away. There are still a couple of issues, like I said, with the not having a major city to for quite a few turns, actually, because you probably will have to fight into the Darklands before you get your first major city, or you go in the completely wrong direction and go fight Cathay over here. So it'll be a while until you get a proper capital to get those good units. But if they fix the problem where you cannot actually get capital buildings in the Mountains of Morn, I think it will make everything so much easier for him. But then he will eventually still fight down. You can cross over as normal, go through the Badlands, and then still fight Null, still carrying out his lore in-game. And finally, for my third start location that he could potentially be in, it would actually be over here in the Western Border Princes. He doesn't normally in the lore come this far south. Ideally, I would have liked to put him maybe here or up here, but because Scrag is occupying the local area here, I think it would make much more sense to go down here and be able to take the Western Border Princes. This will put him in a very nice location close to Nuln, so if you want, you can go up very early into your campaign and start attacking the southern side of the Empire, besiege Nuln very quickly, and then continue to invade the rest, meet up with a nice ally with Festus, and then take over the Empire for Papa Nurgle. But the only thing about this, I think it would be the best start location for him gameplay wise. You start off with a nice capital, you have some allies close by. You could either ally up with Scarbrand. If you move over here, you can ally up with Ikit Claw, And you've also got some strong enemies nearby, being Belagar and Scrag, and obviously Balthazar Gelt, and possibly the new Empire Lord, which will most likely have a dual location, one of them being Null. So yeah, you have a lot of nice, strong enemies around you. You have a lot of allies around you. I think it's a good place for him to start. Yeah, for the gameplay standpoint, I just think it's also very disappointing for him to start here from a lore perspective and from a story-driven perspective. And I'll get into more details with that when I get into his gameplay mechanics and what I think it will be. Because I think, actually, once I go into his gameplay mechanics, it will actually make sense for him to start up here. But again, you have the issues with Korelek and Archeon. But yeah, that's it for my start locations that I think. I'm now going to move on to the actual campaign mechanics for Tamurkhan. So his first unique gameplay mechanic will actually be inspired by the Tomb King's Books of Nagash mechanic. Now, hear me out, because I know a lot of people don't like the Books of Nagash, but let's hear it out. Instead of having like random battles around you, you have specific chronological order battles that you will have the option to go through to be able to unlock stronger forms. So let's say Tamurkhan starts as a basic Marauder Chieftain, not very powerful, just a very basic melee lord that has very basic stats, no mounts, no nothing. But if you fight your way down, you can maybe attack a Warriors of Chaos down here. Maybe it will be a horde army that you have to go fight, or it will be a quest battle and you then beat that army, whatever it may be, whether a quest battle or horde, and then you will be able to take the form of a champion of Nurgle. Maybe it will be a melee version or a magic version, I don't know, doesn't really matter. And then you continue on from there. You go down to here into the Mountains of Morn. Maybe there's another quest battle down here somewhere, and then you'll be able to take the form of an ogre, getting your most powerful, strongest infantry form, to then finally going down even further through your journey. Maybe it will be in the Darklands here, where you can then get your mount, which will be your Plague Toad, which is his final form, which you'll be seeing on screen over here. And then you will then continue on, pushing your way forward. You've become your most powerful form in the chronological order of the journey. This will encourage players to actually go through the campaign as you wish. Obviously, this is completely optional. You don't have to do that, but if you want to get your stronger forms, that's the way to do it. And then you'll push into the eastern border princes to finally push up towards Nuln. I think it'll be a really nice way for CA to implement the fact that he can change forms. I don't really want it to be like the Changeling. I think it works very well for the Changeling, but if you copy and paste that to Tamurkhan, I think it will be a bit cheap and a little bit boring. I do think that you should be able to switch between the forms once you've unlocked them. So if you want to stay as the Marauder Chieftain, you can. If you want to stay as the Champion of Nurgle, you can. And if you want to just be an ogre on foot, you can. Or, again, being on the Plague Toad. You should have the option, once you've unlocked it, to switch between the two. You could probably do it as the Mount tab. Let's get up. I'll show you what I mean. So if I go here, I can't really use them. Yeah, I can. Oh, no, I can't, because this is a hero right now. But normally you'd have like the tab down here where you can switch between mounts to, yeah, either ride a horse or a mammoth or a dinosaur, whatever it may be. But you can use that option to switch between the forms that you have unlocked. His second mechanic is actually inspired by the Greenskins' War mechanic. In lore, during his journey, he gathers the hordes of chaos. He brings chaos together from all corners of the globe, no matter whether they are Nurgle, Chaos Dwarfs, or Undivided. He brings everyone together, ready to besiege Nuln. So I think this would actually work very well, taking inspiration from the Greenskins, except it's always active. So instead of clicking a button and you start your war, let's say, every battle that you do against anyone, you have the chance to gain an additional unit, being a second army on the tab, creating your, quote, war. So this will allow Tamurkhan to get a total of 40 units. I think every battle that you fight, no matter where you are, you have a chance to gain these units. Maybe there are some special units out there. So again, there are additional quest battles that you can go to get very unique units. Maybe a really powerful Plague Toad, maybe a really powerful Dragon Ogre, who knows, something. So unique units around the map that you can also collect to add to your horde. I think it will make it very thematic. I think that these units shouldn't be able to replenish like the war, but with every battle you have a chance to gain a new unit, and it will never stop unless that unit dies. This will allow you to go down, collect all the strongest units possible throughout your journeys, again following your path, and then getting as much of a powerful army as possible before you end up doing probably the quest battle in defeating Nuln. Remember, this is all about the besiege for Nuln. Everything that you do in this campaign is getting you ready to besiege Nuln and then invade the rest of the Empire. So you want to go around, collect as many powerful units, go around, collect all of your powerful forms and mounts, and get ready to attack this main city. Maybe on your journey as well, while getting these quest battles to gain even stronger units, maybe it will also give you a few army abilities or a few certain buffs or debuffs to the final quest battle that will likely be at Nuln. So, and that's it. That's it for the gameplay mechanics. I will go on now to talking about how I think Nurgle can be changed as a whole. Now, the first thing I want changed is with his buildings. I do actually like the cycle system for Nurgle. I do think it needs a few tweaks. For example, the income will be the first thing that I want to talk about. Spending 5,000 or even 10,000 gold to get an income of 50 gold per turn to start off with is really bad. It's really bad. And they need to compress the low number with the high number. So it goes up to 700 here, which is quite good. It's a very respectable amount of income. But there are some buildings in the game that produce way more income than that per building, and that's permanent. So we need something like this. We just need to boost it up a little bit. I think 700 is a good place to end. I just think the lower levels need to start off a much higher. I'd say maybe around 200. And then they can go up in 50s. So 200, 250, 350, 400, 450, 500, then you can go 600 and then 700 here. I think that's a much better way to improve the income. I do think that they need to also move around some of the units. I think mortals should be in their own category, and I think mortals, so that's the Marauders, Chaos Warriors, Chaos Knights, and the Chosen, should have a much more traditional recruitment system. So you can build these up normally as you would in level them up normally as you would in other factions like this. You've also got another example here going up like a normal faction. So this is just purely for the mortals, and you should be able to recruit them normally, recruit them over time, recruit them through so 1 turn time to recruit, and when you recruit them they should be full HP. And I think the cycle system should be changed up for the demons. Now you're probably thinking, but this is probably going to leave some of the trees empty. For example, this one here, if I take out all of the knights and all of the chosen, this is a very empty tree. But with the DLC, we're going to be getting a lot more new units, hopefully a lot of units, which will be able to fill up those slots quite nicely. And that's all the changes that I think need to happen. I think the cycle system is very good for Nurgle. It's very thematic. You have to hold back, wait for your armies to build up properly, while you're throwing out plagues to weaken the enemy. So when your armies are full and they are at its strongest, you can just march in and take the city while it's weakened. I think that's very good for Nurgle. It should be a slower pace campaign, and I want it to stay like that with a little bit more flexibility within the income and the mortal side of Nurgle. The second thing I want to talk about is his technology tree. I think the technology tree needs a complete, entire rework. It is awful. It is the worst technology tree in the entire game. And it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And when you increase the amount of legendary lords that come into this game, it will continue not to make sense until you put all of the legendary lords all up in the chaos waste and forget everything else. The things that I do think should stay the same, there's a lot of things that need to stay the same. But obviously, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. The only things that I really do not like is the region-specific technologies. Like this one here. Growth plus 10 when in chaotic wastelands and recruitment cost minus 25% within chaotic wasteland climates. That's dog shit. I'm sorry, CA. That's utterly dog shit, and it was very obvious that this was put in place with the idea of Realms of Chaos in mind, not even considering any future DLCs or any form of Immortal Empires whatsoever. Instead, I think things like this should be changed to increase the effectiveness of your attrition and your corruption. Not just increase the amount of corruption that it gives you, but increase, let's say, instead of having this recruitment cost here, you have a plus 10% on attrition with high Nurgle corruption. So that's with any region with Nurgle corruption, any army that's not or that's usually takes corruption while in a Nurgle corruption region will take additional attrition now. This will make corruption more valuable for Nurgle because I think corruption for Nurgle should be the strongest. I think attrition through a Nurgle corruption, it should weigh you down. That's what Nurgle is all about. If I was to go and push into a Nurgle region, I should be taking so much corruption and so much attrition marching through that territory that my army should be half dead by the time it gets to them, unless I'm very strategic, going in camp stance. And but it should wear me down. It really should wear me down, and it should wear the AI down as well. This would allow Nurgle to build up his armies quicker, allowing him to push. This will make him much more defensive. I also think that it should give extra attrition for plagues themselves, but I'll move on to that when I get onto the plague mechanic. But I think it should just be doing something like this. Get rid of all of these climate-specific buffs. Get rid of them. Replace them with plague buffs or attrition buffs or corruption buffs. Any of those that will make Nurgle more defensive, grind the enemy down with more attrition, and just make Nurgle more thematic. This doesn't make Nurgle thematic whatsoever, and this needs to be changed. If anything in the technology tree needs to be changed, it's this. Everything else can stay the same. I don't mind. Anyway, that was a little bit of a rant, wasn't it? Let's move on to the next part, which will be the plagues. So the plague mechanics I wouldn't say are that bad. I just think they need a bit of tweaking. Just a tiny bit. And it's mainly the core plagues here. I don't have a problem with any of these plagues here. I think they're all great. Giving buffs to your armies or debuffs to the enemy army, I think is great. Don't change any of these. But the base plagues and the recipes need a little bit of a tweak. For example, the recipes. Who else goes with any other plague other than, where is it? There's the physical resistance one, this one. This is the only recipe plague that anyone ever goes for. Physical resistance plus 20% on Nurgle armies. Why would you go for anything else? Anywhere? Like, sacking and looting would be good, I guess. Especially because of your low economy. But I don't want to be sacking and looting. I want to be taking over the settlements. So you just go physical resistance. These 4 need buffs. These need big buffs. I don't really know what they need to do, but they need to make them more interesting. Like, yeah, I can spawn plague bearers with this and get physical resistance for all of my armies. My armies are basically unstoppable once I have these plagues on them. No matter what I'm filling it with, whether it be Nurglings, plague bearers, chosen, whatever it is, my armies are unstoppable by this point. These, I think, need to be buffed a fair amount. Maybe income from sacking and looting isn't 100%, maybe it's 300%. You know, just up the numbers a little bit more. Maybe 100 growth. You know, just a little bit more. Casualty replenishment one, I do use that one sometimes.
especially when I'm recruiting a new army. So I'll use it, get this one, and build up that army as quickly as possible before I start attacking the enemy. So that one's not too bad. Keep that one the same maybe. But minus spell resistance for non-Nurgle armies, that requires it to spread around. And Nurgle's magic is strong anyway. You do not need minus 50 spell resistance. And if the army doesn't have spell resistance anyway, you can't get negative spell resistance. If you're at 0 spell resistance, you're not going to go minus 50% spell resistance. That just doesn't happen. You're at 0, you're at 0. And most units in this game don't have spell resistance. So this is ineffective to most armies. So this needs to be changed. This one is utterly dog shit. Moving on to the base plagues. I don't think many of them need to be changed. This one I think is fine. This one I would like to see changed. Very, very slightly. I would say that this should actually be a baseline mechanic for Nurgle. I think Nurgle as a faction should give more attrition to settlements, to garrisons. If I am besieging a settlement with any Nurgle legendary lord, I should be giving that settlement much more attrition than any other faction. Because that's what Nurgle does. Nurgle doesn't just march in like Khorne and just take a settlement. He wears them down, and he is the best at wearing an army down before he just marches into a dead city and just takes it by force. He wears the army down first. So this needs to be on every single lord. No matter what, legendary lord, regular lord, every single Nurgle army should have this as a baseline effect for every army on every garrison. Having said that, I do think this should still be here to increase that effect even further. So actually, I wouldn't change the plague. Maybe I would change it to, instead of plus 35%, maybe I'd just change it to plus 20%. I would actually nerf it slightly, but give some of that 15%, 20% baseline to all of the other Nurgle armies. This one here, I think, is also very good. But this, again, instead of all units suffer attrition, this should be all units suffer attrition, including garrisons. Again, I want the enemy garrisons to be taking attrition before I even get there. I want to wear them down. I want to make them weak. I want them to suffer so many losses before I even get to that city. And I just want to walk in and take it. It's mine. That's what Nurgle does. You need to kill Nurgle fast. Otherwise, Nurgle will become extremely, extremely scary. So that's what I want. I wanted to sit back, watch the enemy die, walk my armies in, and just take it. So this needs to be added to garrisons also. I think those simple changes would just make Nurgle so much nicer to play. Because everyone hates garrisons, right? Everyone hates garrisons in this game. Everyone hates sieges. So why not just weaken that army down as fast as possible before I even got my army to that settlement to take it. This one is very boring. Very boring. Summonable units, one Nurgling units when plague is spread. Meh. After the early game, and you have so many Nurglings anyway, this one becomes extremely redundant. Extremely redundant. I think this should be upgraded at some point, maybe in the technology tree. Maybe there is maybe a third effect. Maybe you can upgrade this from Nurglings to Plague Bearers. I think that would make it much more interesting to have in the late game. Early game, great. Keep it how it is in the early game. But I think it needs to be upgraded through the technology tree. And the last one, this -4 melee attack. Meh. Like, you kind of already debuffed the army here. I need an effect to happen immediately, really. But I think this is very weak. I think this needs to be either buffed to like -4. Or from -4 to -8 or something. Or it should be changed to leadership. I think leadership would be much better. Maybe minus... Because there isn't a minus leadership one, is there? I don't think there is. There's nothing that lowers the leadership here. No, I don't think there is. Yeah. Minus the leadership. I think this should be changed from melee attack to leadership. Maybe -4 leadership or -8 leadership. Because everyone's terrified of Nurgle. Nurgle is a fucking scary faction. In lore, that is. So everyone needs to be terrified of him. So minus the leadership, I think would be great. Melee attack, doesn't matter. My units have so high melee defense anyway. They're already tanky enough. It's not about making me more tanky. It's about getting them off the field. Killing them off. Rotting them from the core. These ones are great down here. I think they're good. Casualty replenishment rate, I think, is actually stupid. Like, why would I ever have this if I'm just making them suffer from attrition? They're not going to replenish anything anyway. I would always go for this over this any day. And I can even get it here. Attrition plus 50%. So this is useless. If the army is gaining attrition, useless. Needs to be changed. This is good. Although I think it needs to be buffed. 150 is not enough. Considering how expensive everything is. I think it should be 150. Maybe it can be upgraded later on. So to go from 300, 400. 300 maybe, I think will be a good amount. Just buff it, double it. I think it'll be good. Nurgle corruption, great, especially if they're implementing the Nurgle corruption that we've already talked about, where the corruption increases attrition even further the higher the corruption. So spreading extra Nurgle corruption is great. Plague duration, great. Chance of spreading, great. So it needs a few changes, mainly due to attrition. But other than that, I think the plague system isn't awful. Things just need to be buffed up a little bit. So that's going to conclude my predictions for Nurgle. I think this is a really good place for it to start. I know I'm probably throwing a lot at CA right now. I think my predictions are a bit too high. I feel then all of it's going to come true. They're obviously going to come up with some other things to go alongside that or something completely different. But this is what I would like to see. I think if Tamurkhan came out in the state that I was suggesting here, I think Nurgle would be in a very good place. And people might actually start to enjoy playing Nurgle again. Because I'm a really big Nurgle fan. Out of the 4 Chaos Gods, I would definitely go alongside Nurgle. I think Nurgle is so cool in the Warhammer world. I know that everyone has their favorite Chaos God, and the one that they would align to most, Nurgle, is the one that I would go for every single time. So thank you very much for watching, guys. Please feel free to comment in the comment section down below on how you would like to see Tamurkhan added into the game. Do you think that the Nurgle changes that I suggested are good enough? Do you think he needs a bit more? Do you think it's a bit too strong? What other changes would you like to see? Please let me know in the comment section below. But until then, please don't forget to like and subscribe, guys, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye for now.